China took the stage and final curtain in the third and final presidential debate between candidates Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. Now, the last topic of discussion of the evening was about trade and China. Now, both candidates highlighted the need to cooperate with China, yet also mentioned some current issues they felt the two countries had in trade relations that needed to be worked out first. Now, Romney said that there's an unknowing trade war going on between China and the U.S. that, according to him, is being won by China. He claimed that China is holding down the value of their currency, stealing intellectual property from the U.S., and counterfeiting American goods. Obama highlighted China is a potential friend in the international market, but it has to play by the rules of the international market first. He wants to send a clear signal to China that America is a Pacific power and wants to continue the country's presence in Asia by promoting trade relations with other Asian nations to pressure China to play by the rules. All right, let's check out a couple of clips from that part of the debate.
I know Americans had seen jobs being shipped overseas, businesses and workers not getting a level playing field when it came to trade. And that's the reason why I set up a trade task force to go after cheaters when it came to international trade.
Some people are saying you're just going to start a trade war with China on day one. Isn't there a risk that that could happen?
Well, they sell us about this much stuff every year, and we sell them about this much stuff every year. So it's pretty clear who doesn't want a trade war. And there's one going on right now, which we don't know about. It's a silent one, and they're winning. We have enormous trade imbalance with China, and it's worse this year than last year, and it's worse last year than the year before.
The written record of that part of the debate, entitled The Rise of China and Future Challenges for America, was translated into Chinese and posted on Weibo for Chinese internet users to read. Now, a lot of the comments in response took issue with some of the things that Romney said about China pirating American goods. Some are wondering how the issue even came up in the election campaign, while others criticized the U.S. for accusing China for such actions at all. Okay, let's take a look at a few comments.
I'm really not sure at which point the question about China pirating goods entered into the American general election. How can one person, your Obama, be enough to resolve China's big piracy problem? Piracy? Before you guys used our technologies with a clear conscience, can I ask, have you paid your fee for that yet? You started your copyright fees from the Opium Wars, and we just paid in advance. Can I ask, what about you?
Now, maybe Chinese people don't quite fully understand the intricacies of campaigning, and no doubt many Americans may be scratching their heads as to why the issue has taken some of the spotlight in the past month or so of campaigning. And clearly, some of the reasons has to do with America's own problems with unemployment at home, thus the stealing jobs rhetoric we hear so often from both sides. But a lot of the issue dealt with making sure that China trades fairly on the international market. Now, a number of comments on Weibo found that both Romney and Obama's policies are bad for the Chinese economy and thus for the world. Let's take a look at a few of those comments.
If you guys intend to continue digging a deeper hole for China's bubble economy, at that time you'll encourage everyone to change RMB for American dollars. In the 90s, Japan emerged suddenly as a threat to the United States, and America pushed down the rise of the Japanese dollar, which sent Japan into a depression over 20 years. This time they continue hoping that China hereafter will be unable to rise. Of course, they also want Chinese people to help them. Ha ha ha.
The economies of Japan in the 1990s and China are now not exactly close in proximity. Now, although it is interesting that the user makes the comparison. Now, regardless, China is unquestionably of economic interest to the U.S. and vice versa. So experts say that some of the harder line wordage towards China used by both candidates will likely go away once the next president is elected, regardless of who it is. Now, although some of the previous Weibo comments felt that attitudes towards China may not be too positive, others saw a silver lining in all of this attention. And here's a couple of those comments.
Actually, from one point of view, to hold China in this way is not necessarily a bad thing. To not admit success is, in fact, mediocrity. One powerful country holding China as a competitive adversary is proof that our country holds an important status in the world. A lot of people are saying that if China lies down, it's like getting shot by a gun. Actually, you should change your point of view. Once you're a big nation, other big nations start to look at you as a competitive adversary, and those other people start to be willing to take the time to have controversy with you. Even if they slander you, then that will further prove the threat that you give to the opposite side. There are a number of countries, so stop talking about lying down even if your position falters. America likely has no opportunity to give China a gunshot wound.
Now, it is pretty hard to argue that all the attention is a sign of respect from the U.S., or at least recognition that China has become a serious ball player in the international game of money and power. Now, even if Obama is re-elected, China is set to choose its new leader this year, making the time after both take office a crucial point for the definition of China-U.S. relations for the upcoming years. And there's no question that the two countries are important to each other economically, and that is why trade issues have been coming up in the debates. However, according to the New York Times, trade experts have estimated that about 90% of trade between the U.S. and China are unaffected by trade disputes going on between the two countries. And we'll see what attitude is taken towards China and its currency when Obama continues in office or if Romney is elected. And let's take a look at some final thoughts from our Weibo users about how the third and final debate went.
They love China so much, don't forget that the debate is all a special performance. They have no choice but to say that they don't hold contempt for China's impact. They haven't discussed passionately the issues of China, just continue about impartial trade and currency manipulation. Just several minutes, and that's all.
Indeed. Maybe the best thing for U.S.-China relations would be for both leaders of the countries to sit down together and talk passionately about their positions. Now, of course, that could end poorly as well, especially if Romney says some of those things he said in Ohio earlier this month. Now, as both candidates look to woo voters of swing states in the final push towards Election Day, we'll see how much time China gets in the spotlight.